Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very, very large, powerful autumn storm that will be bringing those very, very, very cold conditions and temperatures across a good portion of the Midwest and into the eastern United States. Now, I will be focusing on the storm itself, as that will be bringing a very powerful cold front across the United States, even some early snow, especially across southern Canada. And then following that system, there will be an extraordinary amount of cold air for this time of the year that rushes into the United States. So again, if you're a gardener, a beekeeper, if anything to do with outside, you might want to watch this video, as there are some important new updates. Okay, so I'll start off by looking at the GFS model, the American model in other words, and then I will look at the European model, the ECMWF. That is another model that is very important, and I want to compare those two models. They have become more and more in line in the last few days about this massive storm and this massive cold, but there are still a few key differences. Notice, right now we are looking at current time, so this is 7 p.m. August 30th. We have the time right here if you ever want to see the time and you're like, when is this going on? And I'm not mentioning it at some point. You might want to look at here, and this will tell you what time this current period is going on at. You know, what time do we have this graphic shown at? So notice that as I put this forward into Sunday and Monday, so this is the end of the weekend into the start of the new work week, there still really isn't anything going on that's crazy. We are experiencing at this point a little bit of a cool blast of air that is remnants of the one that we had last week that came in. If you were to look at the 2-meter temperature anomaly, see that the colors are pretty cool, but again, nothing compared to what we will be seeing. As I put this forward, by Tuesday, late Monday and into early Tuesday, we start seeing a bunch of precipitation towards the north across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. Now this thing continues to slide further towards the south and east across Canada and into the United States. And by Wednesday, late Tuesday, Wednesday, it has coalesces into a strong front that is now beginning to develop an area of low pressure across just north of Lake Superior, according to the GFS model. Again, at this point, this is now Wednesday, September 3rd, so midweek next week. And then notice that this thing is still dragging a powerful cold front across Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into the Dakotas with it. But as I put this continuously forward, that cold front not only gains steam, but so does that low pressure. And we have a low but very cool air behind it, and you can even tell that it's cold just by looking at the sea surface, or sorry, the mean sea level pressure map, not even the anomaly temperature map, because of how these colors are lining up, right? So we have a 540 line, a 534 line, which you may be thinking, okay, why is this guy saying random numbers? That line is the 32-degree line. That is basically where frost happens, right? And notice that in that area we have snowfall occurring. So by Wednesday and Thursday, I wouldn't be surprised to see some snow showers across even northern Minnesota, across southern Canada. Yes, I know this is barely September, but we are going to be seeing some early snow with this system, because again, the air with this is going to be extraordinary. Notice as this thing continues wrapping up, it continues producing a decent amount of snowfall across Ontario. 998 millibars of low pressure. That isn't a record by any means in terms of strength of the low pressure, but it is a pretty strong system nonetheless. And with the help of this high pressure that is just to the south of it, it's basically squeezing. So low pressure spin counterclockwise, right? High pressure spin clockwise. And that is creating this avenue of winds that is driving this really, really, really cold air down pretty far towards the south. And as I put this forward into Thursday and Friday and Saturday, you can see that this low pressure fails to really make its way further south, but it doesn't have to, because again, it's just acting as a pump, pumping that cold air down. The cold front skirtages across much of the Great Lakes and northern Ohio Valley before it hits into the northeast. Again, this thing will be a massive storm. It will, at this point, look at the expanse of this thing. This is going to be stretching several thousand kilometers, probably over 1,000 miles. The GFS does that is a little different from the European model, which I'll show you in just a second, is that it develops another secondary little system. I wouldn't call it a low pressure, but notice that it has an area of showers that really bloom across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois into Thursday and into Friday. Still, notice continued snow across Ontario. There could be several days, according to the GFS, of some snowfall there. And then this continues, the precipitation intensifying, and it evolves into into this system, kind of wraps up into it, further allowing the cool air to spill to the south. So let's take a look at the temperatures now of the GFS model. Okay, so I'm starting this off on September 2nd, so Tuesday. You can see that we still have a little bit of that cool air that is already in place. That will continue to be there. We see very, very hot temperatures across the Northwest, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Montana. You guys will be seeing a lot of heat with this. And then notice that across southeastern Canada, you also will be seeing quite a bit of heat out ahead of this system. Notice that by Wednesday and into especially late Tuesday, Wednesday, it really starts cranking, this cold air. That low pressure at this point is situated just east, just east of Lake Superior, probably just west of James Bay there. And do note that across the Northwest and the Pacific Southwest, we really see a lot of heat at pretty much the same magnitude in terms of how cold it's going to be across the Midwest. There's going to be 80s, even potentially 90s across British Columbia, while Florida's in the 70s. It's going to be quite an extreme weather flip. And do note that these anomalies are very cold. I mean, look at some of these colors. They are approaching that 16 to 20 degrees Celsius below average. So in terms of Fahrenheit, it's almost approaching 30 degrees below average. Look, during the day, a lot of these areas not getting above freezing, and that makes sense as it's going to be snowing there. During the nighttime hours, we see frost and freezes developing across a good portion of Wisconsin, the UP, Minnesota, Michigan. So that is definitely something you'd want to take note to if you have a garden or anything outside. Going back to these anomalies, you can see that the GFS, because it develops that second blooming area of precipitation, as I showed you on the precipitation graphic just a few seconds ago, or a few minutes ago, it allows this cold air to stay alive for a lot longer across the Midwest, and actually develops into a prolonged cool down and a really large pattern change compared to, say, even what we were seeing during the summer. Now, this is going to be different from what the European shows in some senses. European model, I'll quickly go through the precipitation and outlook of the storm itself, and then go into the temperature anomaly of the European model. Across right now, the European and the GFS are both showing that in the short term we will be dealing with a little bit of precipitation across the front range of the Rockies into portions of Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, and across the southeast. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty boring pattern until we get that system. You can see that the European starts developing a really intense cold front by the time we get into late Tuesday and Wednesday, which is the same time frame as the GFS develops it, so we have consistency on that front. And notice that as I put this forward into Wednesday, the European a few days ago was showing this a little further south. It has now seemingly backed off, and it's showing a little bit further up north. Again, the 540 line is there, even the 534 line, which indicates frost and freezes. One key difference between the European and GFS is that even though the European shows very cold temperatures, it does not show some of this rainfall falling as snow. It keeps it fully as rain, which we'll have to see which one has better profiling on this weather storm. I believe that it will probably be a mix of both. I don't think it will be as much snow as the GFS shows, but I also believe it won't be as little or nothing as what the European model shows. And you can see the European develops, again, a very powerful cold front blasting through Indiana, Detroit, Ohio during that early day on Thursday, reaching the Northeast and New England by Thursday, late Thursday and into Friday, potentially delivering quite a bit of showers and activities there out ahead of that massive cyclone. What's different, that is a very noticeable thing, the European does not develop that second bloom of moisture across further south, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and it just kind of takes that storm and shoos it away. And that's going to result in a few things. So while we do develop the cold air, and it is pretty intense, it is very intense according to the European model, the cold air doesn't stick around for as long as the GFS shows. And you can see that it's pretty much out of here and actually warm by the time we get into Monday and Tuesday of next week, not this upcoming one. While the GFS still shows a lot of cold air hanging around at this point. Which one will be accurate remains to be seen. They are jumping around in the long range quite a bit. So yeah, we will just have to wait and see. Look at is just how much snowfall may fall across southern Canada according to the GFS scenario. Again, the European doesn't show any at all, while the GFS does show even 2 to 5, even potentially some pockets of up to 6 inches according to this graphic. Now again, I don't think that necessarily will be the case, as even though this is far north, it's still very warm up there, the soils aren't frozen, so this will probably melt a lot of it on contact, especially since it won't be falling really heavily at any given point. It's kind of going to be more wrapped around moisture and precipitation, but there could be a dusting to a coating, maybe even a little bit more across portions of Ontario, and then into the arrowhead of Minnesota as well, potentially even into northern Wisconsin. So definitely something to be keeping an eye on for. That is basically it though for today's video. Just wanted to give you a quick update on this storm, and hopefully you enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next video. See ya!